First thing we have you do is spell your name, last name first.
Spelling my name, last name first. That is Harris, Harris. First name Kyle, Kyle.
Branch of service,
Branch of service is Army, National Guard.
rank,
E4, Specialist.
okay. When you went in, why did you go in? Why the Army?
When I went in, why did I go in? When people ask me that, I usually go to a little piece of information that I learned when I was an assistant recruiter for one of the soldiers in my unit. And it said that people join for one of 6 reasons. It's either because they're patriots, they need money for school and education, they need guidance and direction, discipline, and there were 2 others. And I think that I joined for 2 or 3 of those reasons. I think the greatest one to me was patriotism. You know, I come from a family that was mixed religions, and the most dominant religion was Jehovah's Witness. So until I moved out of the house, I wasn't allowed to consider participation in the military. But growing up 20 minutes outside of Fort Lee in Virginia and and hearing the cannons in the morning and seeing the planes fly by and the C-5s doing their training, it just always sparked a curiosity in me, and I think that was the second reason, was just there's something bigger going on, and it's, you know, it's taking care of a lot of things, but I don't have a part in it. So following patriotism was just being a part of something that made a difference.
When you joined up, was it what you thought it was?
And some more.
How so?
I expected to be broken, so to speak, in some way. Like when I got to boot camp, I expected mostly physical challenges, but most of the challenges I met were mental. A lot of the weaknesses I had were my failure to see myself as an equal part of a team of people. That really, really struck me to be difficult, because I was always so focused on myself that for once in my life I had to, you know, focus on how I could make the worst person as good as I thought I was. And so redirecting my energy was something that was a lot more than I expected to learn how to do going in.
That's a hell of a lesson.
Yeah.
Tell me about your training.
I'm a 42 Alpha, which is a human resource specialist. So I went down to Fort Jackson when I enlisted in August of 2006. And outside of everyday training for a soldier, which includes weapons marksmanship, basic rifle marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and map reading, among those things, were more finance and administrative related duties, so learning how to take care of someone in black and white, so to speak, how to run the DEERS program, and how to make sure that insurance plans and emergency contact information and soldiers' families were being taken care of administratively so that they could focus on their mission. So a lot of my training outside of the unit that I'm a part of, which is an engineer battalion, has been focusing on providing administrative and finance support for the soldiers within that unit.
Now, when you got through, tell me about graduation, then what did you do as you went through later?
As soon as I graduated, I was overcome with this sense of accomplishment. But I really wasn't sure what I had accomplished because I hadn't used it anywhere. You know, it's like learning to play basketball but never winning a championship. It's like, what's the next step? What do I do now? And how relevant is what I just learned going to be to the people who I'm going to go join? So when I left boot camp and I went to report to my unit, I essentially joined a company of hundreds of people that I had never met in my life to be put in a position with a supervisor that I had never seen before, that had expectations that I had nothing to know about, or no idea of what they were going to be. So I was anxious, to say the least. But they were very accepting. I think that coming in, I expected that what I learned was the only thing that I was going to be able to provide. But when I saw how resilient the average soldier needed to be, and how reasonable they needed to be as far as what training they were going to be responsible for, what they needed to know, and what they were expected to learn, I understood that the process of training was never ending, so to speak. And so once I got into that mindset, I was a lot more comfortable and learning things from the people from my left and my right, and teaching from my left and my right, and I've continued that. So I can say that today I probably know 5 or 6 times more than I learned initially, just from the people that I work with.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, the military, you going to school till the last.
Oh yeah, exactly.
If you don't like school, it's like.
Yeah.
One of the great differences is we used to be a volunteer, well, drafted, but a draftee-driven kind of military. Now it's volunteer. What do you think the good side of that is, and what do you think the downside of that is?
The good side of an all-volunteer force, in my opinion, is that you have people who I would say want to be there for any number of reasons. As I said earlier, there are a number of reasons that have been identified by the recruiters of this volunteer force as why people want to join. And so they appeal to that. They have a college fund, or delayed enrollment into active duty because you're in school. They have different types of incentives that range from everything from bonuses to giving you a certain location for where you want to live. So I think that the all-volunteer force is well understood by the components. And I think that someone who can look at an organization and know what they expect and then voluntarily join is a good asset, because there's an agreement there. They know what they're getting into, and they know why. And being able to get what you expect is important from any organization. I think that the downside of that is that in the end, and when I mean the end, I think that the greatest duty of a soldier is much higher than what most volunteers, all things considered, would be able to put on the table. You might want to go to school, you might want to have some security for your family, you might want a full-time job, but some of those motivations aren't in line with the sacrifices that sometimes are required of you.
Absolutely. Did you from the beginning sort of look and go, yeah, I'm going to end up in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere?
I thought it. I was pretty sure that, that was going to happen. But when I was first informed that we were going to be going over there, I went completely numb in formation. Just completely numb.
How did you tell your family?
I told my older brother to tell my mom. I wrote my sister an email, and I took my younger brother out to lunch, and everyone else had to figure it out from there.
Now, did you have any additional training before you went over?
I did. Another reason why I joined was to continue my career. I was a small business owner here in Chesterfield County for about 7 years. So I didn't join until I was 24, but in an effort to continue and succeed in gaining what was then a business degree, I decided to take all the things I liked about being an entrepreneur and apply them to school. And I came up with business human resources. And as part of furthering my education, I knew that joining the Guard and being a part of the Army component would A, help pay for the school, and B, give me more experience in the realm of human resource management. And so I waited for a while, and I joined as a human resource specialist. So.
Tell me about going over.
It's a long process. It's a long process. And that's coming from me as a National Guardsman. I know that the everyday active duty are a little more mentally and physically and adept to making changes and going to different places to perform essentially what they do on a daily basis. But when you have a volunteer force that shows up for work 2 days a month, it takes a little more time to get them prepared. So our pre-mobilization process was over 120 days, easy. Typically it's 30, but we volunteered as an organization to do an extra 80-something days. So just going through all the check marks that say that you're prepared to go over was something different than what I thought was necessary. You know, what I thought was necessary to prep me to go over was knowing how to do what I was trained to do. And so not being confident and not having any experience as a full-time human resource personnel, I didn't think I was qualified to fulfill my role in a full-time status, much less in combat. So that worried me a little bit.
Now, physically flying over, tell me your route and tell me what it was like as you're coming and you look out the window and go,
Well, it was dark when we landed. And, you know, in my family, you know, my brothers and I, we always stay strong for my sister and my mom and my aunts. And so I felt like I knew the people that I was deploying with, and that really helped. Because when we were landing, even though it was dark, I just looked to my left and my right, and I looked around. I saw some faces that were confident because they had been through that before. Some faces that didn't know where they were going, like me, but were more worried and concerned. And so I think I took a position of strength just to kind of reassure other people that I was with that we're going to be fine because we're together. So I really, even though I was worried, I wasn't wearing it across my face. But I was.
where did you come in?
Where? We went to 2 separate countries on the way into Bahrain. No, not Bahrain. It was Kyrgyzstan, an air base in Kyrgyzstan. And that's where we stopped taking civilian air travel and got onto military travel. And then, so basically we flew a United probably into Kyrgyzstan and then a C-5 out. And from there, maybe a 4-hour ride right into Afghanistan. And RC East was the area we occupied for the entire year. So the whole eastern portion of Afghanistan.
Sun comes up, what do you see?
Mountains. Exactly what I expected, mountains. And a well-established place for people to live and work, which I didn't expect that either. Very robust. We landed in Bagram Airfield, and it was like it's a small city. None other than a small city surrounded by wire. And there's a lot to see. I mean, the perimeter fence is, I want to say, 12 miles.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And at that time, I believe there were over 50,000 service members from around the world residing there. So there was a lot to see, but the mountains were the prettiest.
Now, when they start you on your daily duties, what are you doing?
Day one was my duty as a human resource specialist. You go into the office and you gather strength reports from all the companies that are attached to you as a battalion headquarters, and you roll it up and you present that to the commander for the morning's briefing. So in the morning when the commander's getting their briefing on everything from weather to operations to logistics and intelligence. Administratively, they need to know how many people they have that are available and where they are, so they know what decisions they can essentially make and what they can do. And making sure that we track every single person, no matter whether they're on the way home for vacation or coming in late or leaving or somebody that was attached to us. Just keeping up with everybody was what we started doing on day one, which is exactly what I expected.
How safe was it?
I think safe is overused. I think that the meaning of safe is different to everyone, because what's paired with it is comfort. If I'm comfortable enough, then I can feel safe. If I'm uncomfortable, I feel that my safety may be in jeopardy. So how safe was it for everyone? There's no answer to that. How safe was it to me? I've never been there before. I was with people that I knew in a place and an organization that I was comfortable with. So at first, I felt really safe. That's what I told my family.
At first?
Yeah.
Now, tell me how all that changed.
Day 2, I no longer had that job. At the end of day 1, my supervisor asked me if I wanted to round the corner and work in another office because they had plenty of people to do admin work. And they asked me to work for, instead of an administrative section of the battalion, they asked me to work for a headquarter company which was attached to us. And so essentially I'd be sitting in front of a big screen, and it was an administrative and logistic operations center. So all admin and logistics was run out of this office. It wasn't just administrative. I kind of leaned more towards the logistics side. But this office was also being set up as a redundancy for the tactical operations center. So all the people that we had on the ground that were doing direct operations for our command, their backup operations center was in that office. So essentially I was battle tracking just in case the main operations center went down, which it did on several occasions. And then